We got a graphic violence warning for those that are tuning in. Seriously, there's this video I'm going to play. It shows someone dying, okay? I'm going to do my best to avoid it for the most part because I want to talk about the story. I don't want to show graphic imagery, but there's a split second where it's visible in this video. Let me just tell you the gist of what happened. A man showed up to a school, I believe it was a custody battle. A guy went to a grade school where his kid was, I guess, and he was in a feud with the mother or something. Police told him to leave. He refused. The police tried escorting him out. He resisted. They then said, "You're under arrest." Dude draws a gun. Cops shot him in the head. Now here's the thing. Why is this story relevant? Well, first, he brought a gun to, it's my understanding it was a gun-free zone. It was a grade school. I could be wrong, but I believe that's the case federally. I'm not entirely sure. But he brought a gun to a grade school. He then tried killing police. Now, here's the thing. According to comments made by this channel, Video Leak Police, and I don't know if they're true, the man was allegedly posting things on Facebook that were your typical far-left anti-cop rhetoric, calling for the death and calling for harm to police officers. He then showed up to the school and got into a scuffle, and bad things happened. So I'm going to play the first part. I'm going to try to avoid the part where he literally dies, but I'll like screen frame, I'll freeze it or something. So they're giving you the warning too. All right. I want to point out too, just because I don't want to keep anyone in suspense. This is a far left individual, right? His shirt says, "Smash the patriarchy and chill." The reason I'm talking about this story is because this guy threatened and tried to kill these officers, okay? And protesters came after this, blaming the police, okay? Let's watch. And I've got the story. We'll read the story. He just said, "The principal has not asked me to leave."
The principal has not asked me to leave. I'm gonna hand up. You're under arrest. Let go. You are under arrest. Let go of me. You are under arrest. Let go of me. Code 3.
All right. You can see his hand, right? Because he's about to pull for a gun. There it is. He drew a weapon. They said you are under arrest. And I'll note the "Smash the Patriarchy and Chill" shirt once again. It sounds like there's some shots. And that's it. I'm not going to show the rest, okay? Dude died. And it's sad, right? I'm not in any way happy that anything like this happens. But I do think this is an important story to talk about for a few reasons. This man is presumably a far-left activist. He made many threats on Facebook, according to this, and that might not be true. I'm not entirely sure. It's just coming from this YouTube video called Video Police Leak. But I do have the actual story from KGW8 News. This is from January 13th. The shooting, I believe, was on the 11th. Officers respond to heated protest. I'm sorry, this is the second story, but yes, this is the point I'm trying to make, is that there was a protest at the school over what happened. Let me read the first story. Excuse me. This is from the 11th. No students or officers were harmed during the shooting that occurred shortly after police responded to a report of a custody dispute. Eugene police fatally shot a man they were escorting from Cascade Middle School on Friday morning during a struggle that ensued after he pulled out a gun, a law enforcement official said. The shooting occurred around 10:30 a.m. shortly after officers responded to a report of a custody dispute. No students were injured. Students were able to return. They did what's called a lockout. They locked all the doors. No one was allowed to enter. This is a current ongoing situation, yada, yada. Then they say the Interagency Deadly Force Investigation Team that responds to all officer-involved shootings in Lane County is investigating and would remain on the scene for the rest of the day. For the most part, I think the story that came out on the day of didn't get into the nitty-gritty of what actually happened or why, just that it was a custody dispute and someone died. But so I don't think there's very much here for the most part other than what's going on at the school. But then we have this updated story here. Officers respond to heated protest. The man's name was Charles Landeros, 30, of Eugene, was shot and killed by police on Friday after Landeros pulled a gun during a struggle following a custodial dispute at Cascade Middle School in Eugene, Oregon. A heated protest over an officer-involved shooting at Eugene ended with a police response on Sunday night. Charles Landeros was shot and killed by police Friday after police at Landeros pulled a gun. How many times am I going to read that? Organizers say the demonstration began as an anti-police protest on Sunday when counter-protesters showed up to support police which led to a confrontation. So we have this here from Madison KEZI, I believe that's a local reporter. Protesters and counter-protesters clash at Cascade Middle School this evening. Friends of Charles Landeros claimed Friday's officer-involved shooting was a homicide. Parents of students showed their support. This is what terrifies me, okay? So I'm going to play this video here. It's only 8 seconds. And then you've got the counter-protest saying it wasn't a murder. But actually, this video here, I believe, shows... I don't want to get the locals... here we go.
Frederick Landeros. A witness told our news partner in Eugene Landeros' daughter was right there when the shooting happened. Officers say Landeros was asked to leave the school after a dispute over child custody. But as police were escorting them out of the building, they say Landeros started fighting and pulled out a gun. An officer shot and killed Landeros. No one else was hurt. Watch this, though. Today there was a heated protest outside the school. It started as a demonstration against the...
So I want to address some of the things with these protests. And I think the protest is what makes this really important. We know for a fact this guy had reason to, had motive, had the political inclinations, and literally drew a weapon on those officers who didn't do anything. Like, listen, the officers are just there this isn't a case where a cop pulled somebody over. This isn't a case where a cop stormed into somebody's house without a warrant. This is a case where police showed up to a school to protect the children because there was a custody dispute. And this man, Landeros, pulled out a gun. And their response, the protesters, is disarm police. Okay, what would have happened if the police were disarmed in that circumstance? Probably something extremely, extremely bad for those police officers who are not the aggressors, who are not the bad guys. Now, I believe there are many circumstances where the police should not be armed, right? There are a lot of circumstances where I'm surprised to find police are armed and maybe don't need to be, like traffic control or something. I do recognize there are people who might target cops, but admittedly, I personally don't think that's a reason why every cop needs to be armed all the time. There are many countries that actually don't do this for the civil guard, right? In South America, notably, they have the people who would respond to disputes like this would come with only batons. But then you have to realize the United States has have substantially more guns than everywhere else, and thus we have a conundrum. I don't know what the right answer would be, but I do know if these officers were not armed, that guy drew a gun on them. It's entirely possible they would have been fine, for sure. But I'm not going to ask two officers to go in a situation where a deranged partisan who has presumably or allegedly posted about harming police could be armed. And thus, this is why I'm a centrist. I'm like, man, they should both not have guns. But I recognize that someone's going to have guns, so I don't know what to do about it. So maybe, I don't know what the answer is. But let's see more of this video.
When counter-protesters showed up to support the police.
Saying disarm cops, they're saying that was murder. It wasn't murder. He brought a gun to my kid's school. They didn't get calls because their kids don't go here. I got a call saying that my son was terrified because they heard shots fired.
Eugene police have not identified the officers involved in the shooting yet.
But they are now identified, and there's a really interesting political and partisan paradox. I mean, Eugene, the Pacific Northwest, it's very, very different from the rest of the nation, and this should be maybe alarming to a lot of people. Recently, there was some vandalism that affected the IWW, it's a union, where they smashed a window and spray painted Antifa House or something. So the tensions are really hot in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, we've seen that stuff with Patriot Prayer and the Proud Boys and Antifa. Well, now we're seeing a dude wearing Smash the Patriarchy and Chill, who has a bunch of, far left protesters come in his defense after he's killed, literally try to take out some cops. This wasn't an instance where it was a politically motivated attack, right? I don't want to exaggerate or puff this up to be something worse than it is. But in the Pacific Northwest, you have these situations where somebody is willing to kill these officers over what they want. There's an interesting paradox at the national level of the left saying, ban guns or more gun control, handguns are assault weapons because of school shootings, but then you literally have a guy who aligns with them, who has those far left protesters defending him, literally show up with a gun to a school. It's almost, I don't even know how to explain it. But for someone associated with the far left to bring a gun to a school, a grade school, is something out of a sitcom, like a comedy sketch. The Daily Emerald reports, Landeros was a member of a group called Community Armed Self-Defense. It was created as a new liberatory and inclusive space for all oppressed peoples to learn about armed self-defense. This is the important and probably final point. And I probably shouldn't have buried the lead. He was a member of a far-left identitarian group that was seeking to arm themselves, okay, that trained and look, you're allowed to have guns in this country, but this is where we're going to end up when political extremists show up to a school armed and the police act. And now they're saying disarm police. Okay, let's follow the logical conclusion of what they want. Disarm all the cops, but they're arming themselves. Great. I think we know where that'll end up. So anyway, I'm autoplay videos. I'm gonna end it there. It's a tragedy. I'm never happy when someone dies, but I'm also concerned that we have this far left group arming people, and it results in what we just saw. So stick around. More videos to come later today. 1 p.m. on this channel, 4 p.m. at youtube.com/timcast.